You are looking at the cover of They Call Us Enemy. It is a graphic memoir by George Takei detailing his haunting childhood at internment camps in the U.S. And we are so happy to have George Takei joining us in studio today. So great to have you back.
Good to be here with you.
Fantastic. And I've been flipping through your graphic memoir here. The images in here are harrowing. Take us through the reason why you wanted to put this out and why you want people to pick up this book and read it.
Well, I chose the graphic memoir, essentially a comic strip, because I grew up on comic books. And I remember the information that I got then were absorbed into my body. And I grew up with it and stayed with me for the rest of my life. The internment of innocent American citizens of Japanese ancestry during the Second World War, and it happened here in Canada as well. Canadians of Japanese ancestry were put into internment, and I think that chapter of our histories are vitally important for an understanding of the vulnerability of our democracy. My father told us that it's a people's democracy, and a people's democracy is existentially dependent on people who cherish the ideals of that democracy and actively participate in the process. And when it doesn't, people are also fallible human beings, and people make mistakes. And when Pearl Harbor was bombed, war hysteria and racism swept across the country, your country and mine, and people who looked like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor was seen as the enemy. And with no due process, which is a central pillar of our justice system, we were put into these barbed wire prison camps. My parents lost everything. His business, their life savings, the bank account was taken away, our home was taken away, their freedom and their dignity was taken and put into barbed wire prison camps. This is an important story, and yet to this day, I talk to people who I consider well-informed people, and I tell them about my childhood imprisonment, and they're shocked that something like this actually happened. So I call this my book of hope for the future of America, targeting the young reader, the preteens, the teens, and the young adults. And when they absorb in this information and grow up with it, they're going to be the voters of tomorrow. They're going to be the movers and shakers. And hopefully they will define a better America than what we have today going on the southern border of the United States.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about. I mean, this happened 70 years ago, but there are situations like this still happening in the U.S. So what parallels do you draw from your situation and what's happening with detention facilities right now in the U.S.?
We were imprisoned with the statement that we are all potential spies, saboteurs, fifth columnists, with no evidence, with no facts, no trial, and in prison. What we hear now are these people who are the Latinos coming to the United States southern border, people coming from dysfunctional governments, chaotic governments. They've seen violence, incredible violence. Some women have seen their husbands killed right in front of them, and in abject poverty, they grab their children and flee to the United States. Asylum is a human right. It is not illegal, as that orangutan in the U.S. In the White House claims. It is not illegal, and yet they're all being characterized as spies, or the Latinos now are being characterized as drug dealers, murderers, and what's the third?
Criminals, some
criminals,
of them. Yeah.
Criminals, and rapists, which is not true, and yet they're brutalized in a way that we have not been. Their children are torn away from them and put in filthy, disgusting cages with human waste and crowded. What should hold a dozen people are holding like 60 people. It's a hateful circumstance.
It's difficult to think about it, really, for people. And I know that that's why you've put your Book of Hope, as you said, together, detailing some of your most personal accounts of, what happened. You were only 5 years old at the time. How much do you remember of that day when the soldiers first came to your door?
That memory is still vivid in my mind. My parents got us up very early one morning. I was 5, my brother was 4, my baby sister was an infant. They dressed us hurriedly, and my brother and I were told to wait in the living room while our parents did some last-minute packing back in the bedroom. And so the two of us were just gazing out the front window when suddenly we saw 2 soldiers marching up our driveway, carrying rifles with shiny bayonets on them. I remember the California sun just shining off those bayonets. They stomped up the front porch with their fists, began pounding on the front door. That sound is still very real in my brain. I thought the whole house trembled. My father came out of the bedroom and answered the door, and literally at gunpoint, we were ordered out of our home. My father gave my brother and me little packages to carry, and he hefted 2 heavy suitcases, and we followed him out and stood on the driveway waiting for our mother to come out. And when she came out, she had our baby sister in one arm, a heavy duffel bag in the other, and tears were streaming down both her cheeks.
Wow.
It was a terrifying morning.
And that was just the beginning. And then you spent years from moving from camp to camp, basically, before eventually being freed after the war. I imagine this has obviously had a huge impact on who you are as a person. Memories like that don't go away. And I guess that's the reason why you wanted to put it down on paper and share it with everyone else.
That internment defined who I am and made me the activist that I am today. Had it not been for that, I don't know what kind of person I would have been, but certainly not who I am today.
And, you at home could have a chance to meet George. He is here tomorrow night at the Indigo on Robson Street at 7 p.m. for a book signing. And I know that you're really looking forward to meet some of the people who are going to be reading your book.
I spent 5 months here in Vancouver, and I made a lot of friends, and I hope you all come.
Fantastic. George, thank you so much. So great to see you again.
Thank you very much.